Everyone, welcome back to the C Morning Show. So October the 13th is a significant date as the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction was started in 1989 after a call by the United Nations General Assembly for a day to promote a global culture of risk awareness and disaster reduction.
Yes, indeed. In Indonesia, there is petabencana.id or disaster map, a free web-based platform that produces real-time disaster maps using both crowdsourced reporting and government agency validations. The platform also helps people and communities to reduce their exposure to disasters and raises awareness about the importance of reining in the risks.
Very important, especially for us here living in Indonesia.
Oh, yes.
Joining us in the studio here today is the director of Yayasan Peta Bencana, Nashin Mahtani, who is also happens to be one of Forbes' 30 Under 30 Asia. Good morning, Nashin. Thank you for joining us today in the studio.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes. All right. First question, petabencana.id. Please explain to us what it is.
So Peta Bencana is a real-time disaster mapping platform. We map disasters using crowdsourced reports that are gathered from social media, from people on the ground, as well as government emergency agencies are also inputting official information on the map.
So how does that work?
So we designed a software that's able to listen for specific keywords on social media,
Such as
flood, or earthquake, or forest fire. So when you're on Twitter, even if you don't know about us and you mention it's flooding in Menteng, our software can detect that, and we have a bot that will automatically send you a response asking you, are you really in a flood, and would you like to submit a report?
Right.
And if the user responds, they're guided through a few steps to submit that report, which then appears on a live map, which is free and accessible for anybody to use and understand what's going on.
Okay. Further question. So, for example, right? I write, hey, it's like we're experiencing flood in South Jakarta here through Twitter, right? And then how do you send that that information from Peta Bencana? It's like, okay, these are the things that you need to do. Is it through Twitter as well, or is it through text, or how?
So if you're on Twitter, the bot will contact you on Twitter because we want you to remain in the channels you're used to using.
Right.
And the bot will send you a link. You click on the link, it'll guide you through 4 steps. Input your location, input details about the disaster, add a photo description. As soon as you swipe, it will lead you to the map and show you, here's your report on the map within 0.01 seconds of your swipe.
Wow. Okay, so it's a little bit like when we report traffic on Waze sometimes, right? Like you report there's a traffic, and then, or they ask you to verify, there's traffic earlier reported here, is it still there? So you can report back in real time, yeah, it is, I'm still stuck. How, we also mentioned that this was also verified through, what's the verification process like? For example, okay, you've gotten a couple of reports here, but you have to still make sure that this is really happening.
Right, so we designed the system of reporting very intentionally so that it would create a threshold that's low enough that people want to submit reports, but high enough that it still takes effort to disincentivize false reporting.
Right, okay.
We're happy to say that since 2013, we haven't received a single case of a false report.
Right.
Wow.
But we also, of course, have several mechanisms in place to ensure that if there is a false report, there's a flag button. Anyone can flag it. It'll alert the administrators.
Right.
And of course, we're working with the National Emergency Management Agency and local emergency management agencies who are monitoring the map. If they notice that, hey, there's nothing happening here, they can respond to it quickly, and we can address that.
There's one more thing I wanted to touch on as well. Earlier before our discussion, you mentioned, because I asked, is there an app for this? And you said, actually, there's specifically not an app for this. Can you explain why?
Exactly, yeah. So research has shown that during disasters, people aren't going to learn something new.
Makes sense.
You're not going to download a new app while you're in a flood.
Yeah, true.
No.
But you're going to use what you're already using with more frequency. If you're a Twitter user, you're just going to keep tweeting.
Yes.
If you're a Facebook user, you're just going to keep posting. And so that's why we designed a software that can plug into any social media or messaging app. And this way we can follow the trends. We can plug our software into the applications that people are most using. And that way we don't ask you to learn something new.
Yes.
And it's easy to send a report.
It's not another extra thing you need to have and remember,
Exactly.
because who remembers things when you're in the middle of a flood? You're panicking, right? Probably most likely.
Exactly, yeah. And you know, behind us, there's this Peta Bencana. We've opened petabencana.id. So which areas and provinces, you mentioned that Peta Bencana has actually been here since 2013. So you must have a lot of data already. So which areas or provinces in Indonesia have a high potential for disaster here?
So as we see on the screen here,
This was
all
last
over.
year, right?
this is just last year.
Oh, wow.
So Indonesia is situated on the Ring of Fire.
Yeah.
So the full country is exposed. There's a famous adage that says we have the full buffet of disasters.
Yeah, this looks like it. It's very complete with all the colors. Yeah.
So I mean, take your pick. We have earthquakes, volcanoes,
Landslides.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of course, hydrometeorological disasters are the most frequently occurring. So
Okay.
floods, typhoons, landslides, and this is data from just last year. We see that the full country is affected, and we're going to see this increase in frequency.
So this is clearly, it is important to understand disaster risk management, right? It's like, from your analysis, how aware are we, how aware are we of disaster risk management? And how important is it for everyone actually living in Indonesia, like this, in the Ring of Fires, to understand this?
Yeah, so I mean, not only in Indonesia, but given the scale of disasters we are facing today and that we will continue to face, it is becoming imperative for every single person to be able to participate in risk reduction. The scale of the challenge is too big to be handled by one agency alone. We can't depend on central emergency agencies alone.
Yes.
We need to build a culture of civic co-management where everyone is empowered to be able to participate in risk reduction efforts. And this is exactly what we're trying to amplify through Peta Bencana and our platforms in the region as well.
It's good. It puts it in our hands as well. So we have the
Yeah.
responsibility to report something, and we know that it's at least being heard, if it's being responded to. So you mentioned it's happening everywhere. I think the last 2 weeks we reported on Typhoon Noru as it passed through the Philippines, it went through Vietnam, ended up in Thailand. I believe we may have gotten some of the side effects of some of the heavy rains from there as well. So you're actually expanding initially to the Philippines, correct?
Yeah, so with support from our partners at USAID, we launched a pilot in the Philippines in 2020, and earlier this year in January 2022, we launched at a national scale in the Philippines.
Wow, okay.
And so that's fully implemented, it's running.
Same sort of thing.
Same
Exactly
thing,
the
it's
same.
called Mapa Calamidad, which is
okay.
disaster map in Tagalog. Yeah.
Cool.
And by next year, we'll also have support to implement in Malaysia, Vietnam, and Pakistan.
Yeah.
But the software is designed to be transferable across geographies, hazards, and because it's open source, it's free for anybody to adapt.
Okay.
And so other groups have used it. For example, in Hong Kong, there's a group called Breadline who's using it not for disaster management, but for coordination of food waste. And so it's really adaptable. We're right now building out a global framework to bring together the users of the software. So for anybody watching, you know, if you think this is something useful, your country is going to be experiencing disasters, reach out because you could be implementing it
Absolutely.
in your region.
And you know, it's like, I'm always thinking, right, especially with Peta Bencana earlier, is basically, yes, it's good that we are sending the reports if disasters happen in a certain area. But the other thing that I think about is that I want to help, like, because, for example, there's an area in Jakarta Selatan or South Jakarta that is flooding. It means that probably they need a new place to stay, at least temporarily. They need food, they need blankets, probably clothes. You know, it's like, can that be accommodated with petabencana.id?
Yeah, so you know, we started to notice this, that people were trying to coordinate resource management because of course they want to help each other. And so right now, the second phase of our work in community-led adaptation is moving from information sharing, which is what we're focused on, to crowd logistics. And as we speak right now, our team in the Philippines is coordinating a workshop to kick this off.
Oh, really?
It's very exciting.
Okay.
So we will be releasing this very soon, a crowd logistics feature that will really support communities to coordinate. For any one of us, I need blankets, I need water, I need rice. And you see that, okay, I can help you with one thing. or two things and really create that form of adaptation from the ground up.
I think that's the missing link in a lot of these situations. Like, I don't know if you remember, a few years ago we had that crazy rainstorm on New Year's Eve that ended up flooding many parts of the city. Do you remember that?
That was in 2019 to 2020.
Okay, so it wasn't that long ago. But
No, it was 2 years ago.
I remember there was people who needed help, and there were
Yes.
people who wanted to help, but nobody knew how to connect these two as well. It's like, I have things I would like to help with or send things, but where and
Yeah,
how? And I
where
think
to?
that would be great to have like that bridge in between the two. You also, speaking of the community, you do involve a lot of young people in this program as well. In fact, you have such a thing called Petabencana Ambassadors. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have a program called Disaster Risk Reduction Youth Ambassadors.
Okay.
It's actually in Indonesia and the Philippines. So we've created a network of young youth leaders who are, because we know that youth are not only going to be the most affected by climate change, but they're also key links in their communities between schools, families, and the rest of their communities. And so we're creating a network of youth leaders in Indonesia and the Philippines right now, giving them the tools and resources they need to continue to spread awareness in their areas. And it really fascinates me every month to see on their own, they're leading their own campaigns, they're leading their own activities.
Proactively.
Yeah, very proactively, because they see the scale of disasters that we are going to face. And, you know, at Petabencana, at Mapa Calamidad, we try and make disaster preparedness fun and lighthearted. And so we have a thing called Selfie Saves Lives. And
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
What's that? How does that work?
Why does selfie saves lives?
Right.
So when this is what we learned from people in Indonesia.
Right.
We saw that people take selfies in the flood all the time.
Yes, they do.
Right?
They do.
Why is this important? It's because when you take a selfie, that photo contains a lot of information.
Right.
It tells you the height of the
depth,
flood.
Yes.
It's tagged to location,
Geotag.
and you can share that instantaneously through social media.
Yes.
So Petabencana then structures that data, but that selfie is so valuable, and that's why your selfie could save a life.
Wow.
Literally.
So our youth are often leading campaigns about selfie saving lives. Last week we had a campaign with our partners at Twitter called Selfie Dermawan.
Selfie Dermawan, what's that?
It was a similar concept. We were inviting people to practice submitting disaster reports by posting their best selfies and using that to practice submitting a report to the MAP. And we reached 25 million Indonesian residents in 24 hours.
Okay.
So it was
huge.
That is impressive.
So, next time you're in a flood, don't forget to take a selfie, because you never know what kind of information they could be sharing out there as well.
Yeah, and yes, and Petabencana was also part of the 2022 Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, which was also actually the first meeting of government, non-government, UN agencies, and civil organization representatives to evaluate the application of the Sendai framework. So what was the highlight of the meeting?
So the objective of that meeting was, as you mentioned, to evaluate the implementation of the Sendai framework so far, to draw feedback and interventions from it from a variety of stakeholders. And so Yayasan Petabencana was invited to provide our intervention. And the intervention we provided focused on two main things. One is that technologies for climate adaptation must be and remain open source. We cannot repeat this failure of vaccine patenting as we address the climate crisis.
You're right.
Good point.
So, and then the second thing we really emphasize is the importance of enrolling local knowledge in disaster risk reduction. Local communities not as beneficiaries, but as designers and co-designers of risk reduction programs.
Okay, I'm going to dig a little deeper. With Indonesia in particular, how do you implement that one? Like local values, you said earlier?
Local knowledge.
Local knowledge.
So, I mean, with the history of disasters we have faced, there's actually an incredible amount of knowledge, because people who live most closely with the disaster know how to deal with that better than anyone else.
True.
Correct.
We don't need an external agency telling us how to live with a volcano if we're living 4 kilometers.
They're still there. They're still
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah.
So like for example, we worked very closely with the communities of Mount Merapi who are living just 4 kilometers away from the crater, who have a long history of how to live with that. How do you read animal or plant signs?
Yes.
And using that, how can you anticipate the activity of the volcano? Which what we learned is actually these forms of local knowledge are often much more precise and faster than some of the most advanced scientific instruments we have. So it's not one or the other. It's about how do we complement, how do we amplify both and recognize local knowledge as eligible and as valid as all of the other scientific knowledge that we have.
Lovely. Those were the 2 highlights earlier. Do you have the more highlights from that meeting?
So those are the 2 interventions we presented, and that was collected in the chair's summary. Will be presented at the UN High-Level Assembly in May 2023.
Cool.
Nice, very cool. I have a question in regards to, I don't know much about natural disasters, but one thing that everyone knows is that much like illnesses, early detection is key.
Absolutely.
And just minutes can save lives. Do you know do you have any sort of metric to measure what the impact Peta Bencana has had since its existence in regards to helping people avoid situations, getting these reports a little bit earlier and getting real-time reports as to what's happening on the ground in regards to the impact it's had on those that have survived these natural disasters?
Yeah, so the feedback we've received is that people feel much more able to participate in their communities because they know they're acting on verified information, which is the most important resource in a disaster. We also received input from the government agencies that says that it has improved their response times and allowed them to allocate resources more effectively because they can immediately see when a resident submits a report, which areas are most in need, how to get to those areas and deliver those resources.
Okay, and all of this data, because obviously you can use it to read trends as well. How is this going to help looking forward? For example, hey, it's rainy season or it's monsoon season in the Philippines. Will this help in the future as well for I guess, geologists or those that are climatologists to be able to read what can be coming? Because that can certainly be helpful.
Yeah, so we operate within an open framework, so all of our data is open.
Okay.
And an interesting use case actually, NASA in 2020 used the data from Peta Bencana.
Really?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, so the flood that you're referring to, the New Year's flood, we received hundreds of reports.
Yes.
And that was very rich information source. Now, NASA is monitoring the floods through satellites. The thing with satellites is that the resolution isn't as fine as what Peta Bencana provides. So they used our data to validate their satellite reports. So it was a really wonderful use case of crowdsourced information being used to ground truth satellite.
Yes.
And not only in real time, but then they also used it to help retrain their detection algorithms.
Oh, wow, okay.
Goodness.
And a next case of this is we're partnered with the BMKG, the meteorological agency in Indonesia, who is using it for their impact-based forecasting. So exactly in a case as you suggested, where they're taking the data from Peta Bencana to evaluate their forecast for that day, and then using it to retrain their model so that their next forecast can be improved.
More accurate.
Yes.
So yeah, there are many use
Amazing.
cases.
It goes both ways. There you go. Very useful.
great.
So us as a society, what we can do, I guess, to help contribute and continue for Peta Bencana to grow and expand is just to use it and just to report whenever we see something, because that is, the more data, I assume the more data you have, the more accurate everything, the picture will be.
Yeah, and this time you're collaborating with Twitter and then Telegram and
Facebook.
And in future, are you thinking of expanding collaboration with other social media platforms?
Yeah, so within the next month or so, we will be integrated into Instagram, WhatsApp, and Viber.
Yes.
So,
Very nice.
watch out for those.
Because I get those, I see the most selfies in floods on Instagram. So Instagram needs to be on there too.
Oh,
People
yeah.
on
Instagram.
stories.
Yeah,
and stuff.
actually,
People always posting.
That would be like an extension of the collaboration with Facebook, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, that
you
is,
guys can
it's part of
explore.
Facebook as well.
Exactly. Oh my God. I look forward to the WhatsApp one.
Yes.
Because, yes, I'm on Twitter, Nashin, but I'm not very active. So I'm sure I will miss the report from Patabencana. Hey, can you take a picture? No, the message will be ignored because I'm not active. WhatsApp is better. Well, thank you so much, Nashin Mahtani.
And congratulations on the Forbes 30 Under 30, Asia.
Thank you so
and
much.
now we understand why. Very well deserved. Much continued success for Patabencana.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you. All righty.